Story time! For some of you, that got your attention in a very specific way, and now that I have your attention, I'm going to use it to tell you that the platform Vines hasn't been a thing for nearly a decade. Hey there, I'm Permanent DM, the creator of the game All Mice Die, and today's topic is about enjoying being sad. Regardless of what medium you're using to tell a story, it can be used to evoke powerful emotions. We can all think of a movie scene that made you feel the entire range of emotions, and those things should be on the table for TTRPGs as well. But not all emotions are equally easy to achieve. My number one emotion that I'm trying to evoke is crying in character. Does that mean I'm cackling evilly while twisting the screws on my players? Well, sometimes, but usually that takes the form of three things: clear stakes, personally powerful connections, and impactful choices that I'm able to present to my players. During the All Mice Die playtest, players learned very quickly that death lurked around every corner. One player lost 3 characters in a single session. So that means nobody gets attached, right? Losing characters, even if they aren't your characters, means everyone knows the stakes and actions that death is on the table, but it's really hard to just not get attached. The game is also designed so that the higher level you are, the more tools, both narratively and mechanically, you have at your disposal to push back that specter of death and keep that attachment that you can't help but build. This creates even more powerful connections. You put your mental eggs into the baskets of those that have lived and survived the crucible of low levels. You care about them because they are the ones that lived. More of that in the link below. Consider then that every choice they make with those characters are now much more impactful. Choosing to bring your character into danger now means something different than just showing up to play. So, what does this look like in practice? A player in my playtest sat down to play in an adventure and he could bring any of his characters, but he chose to bring his wizard, Harland. Harland was by far the highest level wizard in the campaign and the highest level character at the table for that adventure by a significant margin. With his assistance, the party was able to walk through a literal war zone as the forces of the Dark Lady tried to snuff out the pesky resistance of the player's most influential ally. However, all was not well. The group were getting hints that Harland's cursed evil eye was reacting strangely to events. During a tense meeting with the leaders of the Tree City of Arbor Asticus, the resonance grew stronger. Something was wrong. Then the players realized, when they activated the companion item to Harland's eye, that the eye would try to open and destroy everything in its path. Having the roof blown off by a magical superweapon in the middle of your peace talks is unlikely to leave your host in a particularly good mood. But Harland was high level, experienced, confident. He knew the curse. He knew the conditions that might trigger it, knew the consequences for failure could be catastrophic, but he also knew his character could handle it. The dice disagreed. The eye triggered. He chose to risk his life to keep the peace, and a knife through the other eye protected the powers that be. But Harland was dead. A lot of discussion happened about what could have been done differently, ideas that were great but not thought up when the chips were down. Lessons were learned. But Harland's player sat there stunned for the rest of the session. He could have played another of his stable of characters to complete the session, but he chose to sit it out and process. He had lost characters before, several in fact, including a session where he lost 2 in the same game. But this one was different. Harland was supposed to be the one that lived, and now he was dead. He was watching the others with tears in his eyes. In the end, one of those mechanisms that helps higher level characters be resilient was used. Harland survived, but the cost was great. Harland was now blind in his real eye and unable to speak. He would forever be a silent watcher of a world he could only see through the glaring red light of the cursed that cost him his eye. Before he knew it was possible to recover Harland in some way, shape, or form, I saw his world close in around him. After the session, we talked, and he mentioned potentially leaving the campaign altogether, afraid that he had grown too attached. Harlan's player had never had emotions like this in a game, and he wanted to discount them, run away from them, and escape. Which, to be clear, is perfectly valid. If that is not the experience you want, and you think would be beneficial to you in the long run, you should not be forced to do so. Do not keep your players crying at the table at gunpoint. This is not legal advice, but it's kind of legal advice. But we sat and we talked for over an hour after the session ended. I shouldn't care so much. This shouldn't bother me, he said. He had been taught to minimize his feelings. And as a 19-year-old young man, feelings are dangerous and he should be invincible. These are things that he knew. This situation for me was delicate, but it could be powerful as well. I remembered being 19. I didn't tell my player to not worry about it, to not be sad. It's all make-believe. Although he did have a heroic injury he could take to survive, and he didn't know that at the time, it was not actually the end for his character. I didn't bring any of that into the conversation either. Instead, I told my player, my friend, to feel the loss, to get mad, to get sad, to feel frustration and loss, and explore these emotions. Because this was the scene where the dog dies, where the hero falls. The Empire has struck back. Even though he did get to keep some form of character, the loss he experienced was real. The way he approached the game, the community, his character, it all changed because the characters were made up, but the feelings were real. Afterwards, Harlan's player confided to me that this had changed something about him as a person, and he thought it was for the better. That's one of the coolest things that I've ever heard. Not just in games, but in life. So what's the lesson here for players and dungeon masters? Life lessons are best learned by murdering your characters? No. No. The lesson here is that these games can be more than just feel-good moments and quick laughs. Don't get me wrong, those are good too. But if you have emotional lows to compare those emotional highs to, then that feeling of being up here feels all the more real. Granted, our lives aren't successes all the times, but failing and losing makes those victories all the sweeter. And our lives not being successes also means that you and your players might want the game to be a place of successes because that option is just a good outlet as well. As a player, if you want to do this sort of thing, consider caring about things, investing in things, and letting yourself feel it when they're lost. As a GM, considering using the tools of the games you are running to put what your players care about on the line and then let them take ownership of the outcomes. You kill Uncle Ben, but you also let them see that the person they let go was the one that pulled the trigger. I go into more detail about how this applies specifically to Wes March's games in my video, Let Them Fail, but that is more of a campaign level, while this is very much on the level of characters. I don't tend to share these types of stories on my channel, but if it helped you or was interesting to you, leave a comment down below and let me know. Also, let me know a story from your game and how it played out. And in general, if you like what I'm doing here, like, subscribe, hit the bell button, and consider supporting me on Patreon if you really want access to more cool stuff. My Wes March's game, All Mice Die, is launching on Kickstarter soon, so if you want to hear more about that, there's also a link in the description below where you can keep the conversation going by joining the Discord server. Because at the end of the day, Wes March's is all about community. Until next time, thanks for watching.